Thanks everybody for joining. My name is Nick Scott. I'm here with my colleague David Cuomo, and we'll be doing this presentation to cover all things OSC and basically how to get started with it, especially working with EPM products. So before we get started, just want to do a quick little bit of marketing and really thank OD Tug for organizing this webinar and putting on the annual K-Scope conference. Just wanted to highlight that this year it's actually going to be in Seattle, and for anyone who hasn't attended that works with Oracle EPM products, it's definitely a one-stop shop for everything education around those product sets. There's presentations by Oracle ACEs, consultants, and even customer success stories. So if it's something that you haven't been to in the past, we highly recommend it. Here at SC&H, we actually send a bunch of our employees, usually about 10 actually each year, to go and attend the sessions and really use it to advance their training on a variety of skill sets. So just wanted to plug that a little bit, and rightfully so, and thank you again for organizing this. Quickly cover our agenda. We'll just do a brief intro into SC&H Group, talk about a little bit about who we are and what we do. Then we'll go into a deep dive of OSC, talk about the product background, the different versions of it, and some of the latest enhancements that have really come out to enhance its usability with S-Base and the EPM products. And then lastly, we'll be going into a live demonstration of using a Major League Baseball statistics application that we built in-house to show all the data visualization and cool features that OSC brings to enhancing data sets within S-Base. So as a quick introduction, my name is Nick Scott. I'm a principal consultant with SC&H. I've been here for almost 11 years now, working in our business performance management practice and extensively working with Oracle Hyperion products. I primarily have worked on the budgeting and planning side, do have a little bit of HFM experience as well. I've designed and led implementations for some of our largest clients, mainly in the hospitality and government contracting and aerospace and defense contracting spaces. Most notably, led the project for a deployment of PBCS at Hilton for operational planning to all of their owned and managed properties around the world, and that was to about 2,400 users, so that was a pretty exciting project. I also built and lead our infrastructure practice, as well as strategy for BI and data analytics.
And I'm Dave Cuomo. I'm a senior consultant with SC&H. I've been with the company for around 3 years now. Prior to SC&H, I worked extensively with data analytics for a telecommunications and logistics company. I have extensive experience working with virtually every EPM product, including HFM, Hyperion Planning, standalone S-Base, and all the supporting integration tools such as FDM and ODI. More recently, I've been focusing on leading efforts to extend our clients' EPM footprints into the BI and data visualization space.
So in case you haven't heard of SC&H Group, we're a full-service management consulting and CPA firm, structured very similarly to the Big Four. We do offer traditional accounting services such as tax, audit, mergers and acquisitions, financial planning, but the group that Dave and I work in is called Business Performance Management, which falls under our management consulting arm. We focus on business advisory and process improvement, and through a large part using the Oracle EPM solutions to complete those engagements. We're an Oracle Platinum partner, and we've been Cloud Select for 2 years in a row, and we actually have held the Platinum partner status since 2007. We are the largest Oracle EPM practice on the East Coast. We like to say east of the Mississippi, and we actually have 50 full-time employees that are dedicated to our Oracle Hyperion EPM practice, which I said is called Business Performance Management, but those are full-time employees dedicated to these solutions. Our practice was actually founded 18 years ago, so dating back to Hyperion Enterprise, working all the way up through System 9 and all the way now to the cloud platforms that we've deployed for many of our clients with the PBCS and FCCS solutions. All of our clients are success stories that are 100% referenceable. One thing we like to hang our hat on, and this is just a list of clients that we've serviced most recently. Typical logo slide. All right, so now that we have those items out of the way, let's dive into the meat of the presentation. And the first thing we want to cover is just for anyone who is new to Oracle Analytics Cloud or OSC is just the various product components that are associated with it and what really makes that product tick. So OSC is really Oracle's cloud offering for everything BI and analytics. When we talk about it, mainly from an EPM focus or first understanding of how it works with the EPM products and how it relates, is it combines the BI platforms that everyone knows with Oracle OBI EE or even the cloud products now, which is BI Cloud Service, and combines that with the S-based cloud service and the Oracle Data Visualization Cloud Service. So those are the primary components of it. We'll talk a little bit more about the differences between them and how they're utilized, but those are the primary elements that come with the software. It does extend further. There's everything from big data and analytics to a lot of machine learning and artificial intelligence is baked into the platform as well, but those are the elements that we're going to cover in the most detail today and how it relates to the EPM products. One of the biggest differences between OSC and the other EPM cloud products, such as PBCS or SCCS, is that those are SaaS solutions. So PBCS, SCCS, pure SaaS, software as a service. OSC is actually a platform as a service. So Oracle still hosts the environment, but it does provide some increased flexibility in many factors. So you can do increased security configurations, creating very technical solutions if you need private VPN tunnels to some of your data sources. You have server-side access, so you can actually get at the logs and do a little bit more outside-the-box configuration of your environment. And it also allows you the ability to control and own that environment as far as scaling and patching. So you can actually scale your services up with more memory and CPU utilization. So if you're finding that you are having performance bottlenecks or you want to create additional services, you have the ability to do that. You also have the ability to control when you are going to apply patches. So if there's a patch that's coming out and it's functionality that you want to take advantage of, you can apply it right away. If it's something that's coming out that may impact your environment, or you would prefer to test it or look at it a little bit more, maybe you have a quarter end close coming up, or you don't want to push it directly into your service, you can hold off and choose to do that. It's entirely in your control. Oracle does offer autonomous versions of OSC that does allow the patching for you, but it's give and take whether or not you want that flexibility to be able to apply these patches on your own. So we use a little bit of the safe harbor statement when it comes to this slide, but at the time that we put this presentation together, the three main editions or versions of OSC are what we have listed here: the Standard, Data Lake, and Enterprise Edition. What we're going to be showing you today is the Standard Edition, which really is what you would want to utilize to get running with using data visualization with an S-based source. It has everything you need. It has the S-based cloud service along with the data visualization cloud service, which Dave will show you in a little bit. Stepping up to the Data Lake version, that really allows you to take really your data sources to the next level by doing sandboxing and scenario modeling, doing a lot of replication of those data sets, and even having the ability to run calc scripts that are automated in a sense, so that if you create these sandbox or scenario type views of your data, the calculation scripts will automatically recognize them and run on them. So a little bit more artificial intelligence and ability to do more data analytics type exercises. And then the version here on the right, Enterprise Edition, really is the full-blown OBIEE with BIX, with S-based cloud service, and the data visualization components all wrapped up into one product. So if you're looking for more of the executive dashboarding, more, I would say, stagnant type dashboards that you would publish that they would access on a daily basis, which is the BI Cloud Service components. And then you also want the self-servicing dashboarding, which is the data visualization. The Enterprise Edition is going to give you all of that. It also comes with a day-by-day app. So that's what you can actually download from the App Store, which is pretty neat. It actually has location services. So if you have dashboards that are showing sales and you utilize this app on your phone, if you land in Chicago, it actually has the intelligence to bring up sales for Chicago, or if you have a site there, any visualizations that are in relation to where you are. So a lot of cool technologies are built into that. Just to kind of visually represent what we just showed you on the last slide, everything in blue are the components that would come with OSC, particularly the Enterprise Edition. So you can see here we have BIX, which feeds data visualization, the S-based cloud, which can feed data visualization, and everything can be accessed via a web browser, a phone tablet. It even also comes with a DV desktop version, which allows you to go offline and actually have and perform data visualization through a desktop piece of software that you can install on your machine. Over here on the pink, we just have some of the legacy components of how they could get migrated up into an OSC type environment. And one interesting fact right now is just the way that OSC connects to a EPM cloud application. It actually uses the legacy BI admin tool and the RPD repository to build that connection. You actually upload that to OSC. Once you do that, you have full connectivity back to a PBCS application, and we've found that it works with FCCS as well. So they're working on migrating that admin tool into a web-based client or web-based portal for you to access it. But as of right now, it still uses that connection method for direct connections back to PBCS or FCCS. The S-based cloud is a direct connect methodology. We'll show you that in a bit. The one benefit of moving to any cloud product, and one thing that we really have seen with OSC is that it's continually evolving, and the latest patches and enhancements really keep coming month over month, and we keep seeing really incremental improvements with each patch that comes out. We just noted down some of the most, I guess, important or items that would affect the EPM community, as primarily S-based users, with the latest patch set that came out in September. Really, the additional uses that you can now do with MDX and MaxL and the ability to run them through the web interfaces and through clients has been greatly enhanced. A couple other neat items are the connections and data sources. Not only have they been expanded, but you can actually set those up now so they can be reused across various elements. So if you had a bunch of different load rules that you want to utilize the same connection for, you can utilize that and have it be shared across your load rules. There's dynamic security filters, which actually allows you to apply S-based type security back to a data source. So a lot of the concepts within OSC is utilizing a data source or a common data source to perform all your visualization or reporting. Having those security filters flow back to the source is pretty neat. And then there's a couple of these items that Dave will touch on as he does a live demonstration of the S-based cloud service. One other one that I will point out is just the gallery templates. So like Sample Basic, which is on your on-premise S-base, is your sample application that everyone's probably used to seeing or seeing in a webinar or on blogs, things of that nature. Oracle is actually providing these templates, which are standalone S-based cubes that come with READMEs, which show you good ways to apply visualizations or even learn how to statistically get at different types of data sets to really help people change their mindset versus just doing SmartView queries and analyzing the data versus creating meaningful and rich data visualizations. All right, so let's get into our OSC demo. And we did this, like I said, based on a Major League Baseball stats application, particularly from the year 2008. And that might seem a little quirky. Why 2008? So just a couple items that we wanted to prove. We wanted to use the S-based cube designer in this exercise, which is the Excel add-in or the equivalent to SmartView that comes with OSC, to quickly create an ASO S-based cloud application from a simple stats data file that we got from the internet. We wanted to utilize the standard S-based functionality to load the metadata and data using standard load rules that we would use on an on-premise solution. We wanted to directly connect OSC and the data visualization service to the S-based cloud application that we built, so the MLB stats application, and ensure that direct connection truly works. So note that everything that we're going to show you is a direct connection. No file-based connections will be used as part of this demo. And then the primary reason that I forced upon Dave was to use data visualization to highlight the greatness of Chipper Jones. He's 2008 Major League Baseball batting champion, and he also happens to be my man crush growing up. So a giant Atlanta Braves fan. And just in case anyone doesn't know who Chipper Jones is, a couple of photos here just to show you how relatively good-looking guy and why we could base this whole application on him. All right, so with that, I'm going to switch over and quickly show the Cube Designer and how that works. So as I was mentioning, the Cube Designer is a Excel add-in similar to SmartView. It actually puts another menu item up here outside of the SmartView ribbon, and you can connect to your OSC environment directly from Excel. Click OK. I'm actually already connected. And one of the biggest features or the most powerful features of this is to actually open your application inside Excel into a workbook that you can manipulate and change to actually build an S-based application. So I'm going to go and click on Export Cube to Application Workbook here. And just going through that URL, it's hitting my S-Based Cloud service. And in here, I can see that I have my Major League Baseball Statistics app. Also have Sample Basic out there, which we've imported, and then another test application. So it's live connection, looking at what I have out in OSC. You can select your cube, and I'm going to click Run. And this is actually going to generate a full workbook here. That is my application. So the different tabs here at the bottom represent different pieces of my app. So I have some basic cube parameters here. I have the cube settings. So you can see it's an ASO cube, whether or not I had dynamic time series enabled, all the substitution variables I've used, all that stuff comes out in the cube designer. Now the thing that most important is the ability to edit the dimensions. So if you're used to using the Smart View dimension editor and either 11.1.2.4 EPM applications on premise or in the cloud, you know that it's pretty easy to update your metadata through there. This is very similar, except it pulls all your application out in one fell swoop, and you can make your updates right here. So if I wanted to add another account to this application, so if I wanted to add a different statistic, I could come in and just do that under the account parent, add another child, and then go to Cube Designer and hit Load Data or Build Cube, and it'll ask me if I want to update or completely replace the cube. So pretty powerful. One other feature that I'm going to show is that if I'm working in the league dimension, for example, so here you can see that we built out the league, which has all my different conferences and the teams that roll to those conferences in here. I can use the hierarchy viewer, which gives me a more hierarchy type view. I can edit the members within here. I could rename them. I could edit the parents and change their storage properties if I wanted to. But one pretty cool tool is the ability to highlight something. So if I wanted to click on Astros, and say this was a very large dimension and I was trying to sort through it, very much like the Smart View Find button, I can hit Go To, and it takes me on my spreadsheet right to where I was looking in that hierarchy view. So if I was making edits or I knew I wanted to add to one portion of the hierarchy, I can utilize that to quickly get me there. The other feature that I did want to show, we don't have any formulas in this application. In our MLB stats, we loaded up all the statistics, like I said, from a data file. I'm actually going to pull out Sample Basic real quick. So I'm going to switch and hit Export Cube once again and change this over to the Sample Basic application and hit Run. Wait a second. And then now you'll see in this application, I actually do have formulas associated with a lot of my members. So I can see over here my accounts, my opening inventory has a formula on it. You can actually use in Cube Designer the formula editor, and you can edit your S-based member formulas directly here. And it comes with all the functions, it has the operators, and once you're done, it actually has the documentation embedded as well. You can validate your formulas, make sure that they're good, and save them, and they'll apply. And then when you load the application back to OSC, it'll be loaded directly to your app. Dave, is there anything else in here that I've kind of missed touching on? That I think you should hit. Okay, so I think that's it before I hand it over to Dave, who's going to take us into the web interface of S-based Cloud Service. But really just wanted to reiterate, the Cube Designer is pretty powerful. We've utilized this for building a lot of our cubes and also really the maintenance of them. So you may have decided to use one of the utilities to take your S-based cubes that are on-premise and migrate this over to OSC. There's utilities that will allow you to do that. But once they're over in OSC, it's really easy to manipulate, edit, or change things using this application workbook, and we've found that it's really our preferred way to do that. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Nick. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hop over into the web interface of S-based Cloud Service. I really just want to highlight some of the new functionality that Nick talked about that came out with the September patch. So if you've seen S-based Cloud Service before, you'll recognize that this is the classic user interface. You can see here's your applications on the left, the database is underneath, and then there's some options that you can do here on the right side. Since this has been out for a little bit, what I'm actually going to do is show the new modern interface, which came out in the most recent patch. So if you go to where you're logged in here, you can see I'm as admin. There's the modern user interface. So when I click that, you can see now that it's changed the look and feel. It's still similar, still has the kind of, bubble buttons at the top, but it's all still pretty similar. Some of the stuff that is nice that they've added is some of the cosmetic features, just like the colors of these blocks here. You can see I have aggregate storage cubes. I also have the blue is a block storage. So kind of as quickly I can identify which are my ASOs and my BSO cubes. Some of the other features I want to highlight here underneath this Applications tab is on this Actions panel. And when you go under here, the first thing I want to show is this Inspect button. And what's nice about this is the Inspect button, it kind of compiles everything about that application that you would need to ever use. Just some general information. You can see here's all your dimensions, all the files that you would use, such as my rules, where my data files sit. You can also see your outline file is stored in here as well. The other thing that's new, as Nick talked about before, is the ability to create Maxell scripts, MDX scripts, and it was actually left off the patch notes, but report scripts as well, which is all really nice that you can do inside the user interface now versus it used to be all through a command line interface. So it's really nice that you can just stay inside the web and do all that here. There's also a lot of other stuff that's in here as well, such as security filters for the database, your variables, any locks, settings, statistics, the audit trail in case you want to see what data has been changing, and then partitions. Another thing I want to highlight underneath this Actions button is this new Analyze feature. So when you open up the Analyze button, it brings you to this page that looks an awful lot like SmartView. And it has a lot of the same functionality as SmartView. You can see I'm looking at my MLB cube, and you can just click on, if I want to look at league, I can pivot that over. I can zoom in on league, drill down. It does all the same functionality. If I need to execute MDX inside of here, I can create my MDX query and execute that right from here. I can also submit data and run calcs if I need to. And I also suspect one thing that is missing is a tree hierarchy viewer. I suspect they'll be adding that, and that's what this blank panel is over here on the right. And this is really nice so that you don't have to hop back and forth between SmartView. You can stay all on the web and just do some quick analysis if you're just testing some calcs or something like that. The last thing I want to show here on the applications page is your outline. And before in the classic interface, if anyone's ever seen it, the outline is kind of a click through. It doesn't really give you a full picture of your dimensions. And what's really nice in the modern user interface is they've actually switched back to this tree leaf view where you can drill in and see everything underneath a little bit cleaner. You also have all your properties here on the right that you can make adjustments to. And this is a nice look and feel, a little bit more similar to the ES console or EPMA dimension library, if you will. It looks a lot more like that. So it's much easier to work with your dimensions versus the classic interface. The next thing I want to show is underneath this sources button. And these are just a couple quick adds that they had. If you do a create a connection, you can see now that SQL Server and MySQL have been added, which is really nice that they keep adding more and more connections for various data integrations.
I think that's one of the biggest enhancements we've seen, just because we do have numerous customers that utilize S-based load rules or actions that write off a SQL database. So not having that available before was kind of a drawback. And it's now that since been added, and now you can hook those things directly to SQL Server as long as the connection information is provided. So that's a pretty nice feature to have. Yep. And the last thing I want to show here is the console. And the console is nice because all this stuff is actually spread out in the classic user interface. And in here in the modern user interface, everything has just been reorganized and brought together in one location. So here's all your desktop tools. You can still use the command line interface if you wanted to execute different imports. If you wanted to load data, you can do it through here. Your lifecycle management utility is used for exporting your on-premises applications into OSC now. You can see there is also the Maxell client and various other different clients that you can download. If you wanted to create some automation, you can download these clients and set up schedules
to automate data loads using these utilities. The other thing I wanted to highlight is your logs. If anybody has used this product before, you'll know that the logs used to be housed only inside of the server. So anytime, if a problem came up or you had a bug and you needed to submit an SR through Oracle support, you had to secure shell into the Linux server and run commands and to get those log files. And what's really nice now is all those log files are in here. They're broken out based off of what you're trying to get the logs for. So it makes it a lot easier and faster to get that problem fixed with Oracle and get those logs over to them. Some of the other stuff you can see is just your sessions, some database size statistics, your configuration. That's where all your config file properties would be. Again, variables, the ODBC settings, and performance analyzer. And one final thing I wanted to show that Nick already kind of highlighted on, but just to show you where it is and how easy it is to get to. If you go to Files and you go to Gallery and then Applications, you can see these are all the new templates that they've added with the latest patch. And again, these are all easy to download. Majority of them come with READMEs. As you can see, they have different ones for depending on what you're trying to work with, whether it's HR or sales or projects. There's a lot of different options in here, and it really helps show you all the different technical features and options you have with OSC Sbase. So that pretty much covers everything we wanted to highlight for Sbase Cloud Service. As you can see, it has a lot to offer and it makes a really, really great solution for anyone that wants to move Sbase from their on-premises application over to the cloud. So what I'm going to do now is shift over to DV, but if anybody has any questions on the Sbase stuff, please throw them in the chat. Okay, so this is DV. The DV interface hasn't changed, unlike Sbase has. So this is, if you've seen any demos before, it's going to look pretty familiar. A few things I want to highlight just on the home screen here is the what's new section is everything that you've been working on. So if you've had a project you've been working on, such as the ELBE Demo, which I'm going to show you guys in just a little bit, you can see these are all Excel files that I've loaded up to do some different analysis on. You would see Sbase cubes here or any subject areas that you've created from a repository would show up here as well. And then as you scroll down, it starts to give you a little bit more a cleaner view. You can see here's a favorite of mine that I just favorited for today, so you guys can see that feature, and then projects, data sets, and then any data flows that you've created if you're working on any machine learning. All of this stuff is also located in the navigation button. You can see here's your projects as well. The one thing that is nice from this projects button is the ability to create folders. So if I wanted to create separate folders for myself and then have those folders shared that maybe I'm working on something and Nick wants to work on it as well, I can share that folder with him, but he's not going to step on any of my work, and basically gives him the ability to work on the same project but spread them out. The other thing is the data, which is where your data sets and connections are all stored. And the machine learning, if you're working on any prediction-based analysis, all your machine learning data will be stored in here. And just one final thing I want to show is when you're actually working on creating projects, if you click Create, you can see this is where I'm going to click Connection, and this is where I can make all my connections, whether it's Oracle product-based, is Amazon, Google, IBM. As you can see, there's a lot of different options in here, and they keep adding these every time a patch comes out. Just kind of reiterate that for anyone who hasn't seen this before. So visualization really is sitting on top of Sbase. Sbase is just one of many connections that data visualization can use, and Dave just scrolled through that list. But essentially, you could have data sources, all kinds of data sources that would bring together into this project screen, and you could access them all from here. So you could have your Sbase applications and your visualizations, as well as anything off of a relational database or Amazon Web Services, everything Dave just showed. Yeah, it is really nice, all the options you can get, and I swear every time I see it, there's something new in there. So it is great. From here, your data sets are based off of whatever your connection was, whether it's a file or Sbase or SQL or Amazon. You can create those data sets off of that connection, and then you're just going to create a project off of that data set. So it kind of has a nice flow to it. The other piece, again, is data flows. If you're doing machine learning, if you're trying to do some prediction and analysis, you can do that through data flows. You can also do things such as with file-based loads. Instead of doing manual manipulation before you load the file in every time, you can basically train your machine to do that manipulation for you ahead of time using these data flows and sequencing. So it takes that work out of it, and you no longer have to do that labor to every time manipulate that file. You can have the machine do it for you. All right, so enough about the home screen. I'm just going to get right into the good stuff. We're going to go into the ELBE demo. Okay, from here, if you haven't seen this screen before, I'm just going to highlight a few things before we get into some of the visualizations. If you take a look here on the left, you can see your data elements. And basically what the data elements is doing is it's reading my MLB S-base cube. So you can see MLB is my application, stats is my database, and it's returning all of my dimension underneath of those. You can also create custom calculations based off of accounts. If you're trying to do a calculation in here, you can do it right in here, write the calculation, and then actually pull that into your visualization. Down here is just some properties of the canvas, whatever you want your title to show as. You can change your access labels, your values, and then you can actually do some analytics on your visualization. The next panel over here is, I like to kind of think about this from a smart view kind of ad hoc thought process. When I'm looking for data in an ad hoc, I have to create my point of view. So, I need my account, I need my product, or whatever it is I'm trying to look for. I have to create that intersection. So that's really what this panel is used for, is creating that intersection. And then I don't have any up here, but you could also add them up here, and this acts as a page filter. The one thing I will note is, because this application is relatively small, you won't see a lot of filtering down that I have to do. And that's just because of the way that the DV service receives the information from S-base. It's able to handle it without filtering all the way down to a base level intersection. Okay, so what I want to do here is just hop in and show you some of the visualizations. This one's very simplistic. I just wanted to show that you can go as anything as simple as a horizontal bar graph that's showing the American League versus the National League for how many home runs they've hit. And I can quickly glance and see, okay, the National League has hit more home runs. It's as easy as that to just figure something out, and I no longer have to look at raw data to figure that out.
The one thing I'll highlight too is Dave's going to step through a lot of these visualizations, so that way we can just show you the various types of charts and graphs that we have in here, and it's laid out like presentation type format. And then after this, Dave is going to live spin up a couple fresh canvases so you actually see how you would do this from scratch. But we just wanted to highlight all the different charts that are in here, because we do get a lot of questions in particular. Hey, does this have a donut chart? Does it have tree maps or heat maps? So he's going to go through that, show a lot of these, and then he is going to go through a live spin up of these visualizations, and you can see the performance and speed of it.
Yeah, and again, there is a lot of functionality in here. So as I'm going through this, if you do have any questions, again, please put it in the chat, and we'll take care of those afterwards. So the next piece I wanted to show, and I'm just going to get a little bit more complex as I go through these. You can see I've just added a filter here. Because the National League had more home runs on my prior visualization, I've just now added a filter down here where you can see where I'm filtering out just onto the National League and looking at home runs. And in this case, I'm using just a standard bar graph. The next one adds a little bit more complexity to it, because I'm using actually two visualizations inside of the same canvas. As you can see here, everyone's favorite, the donut, which the pie is out, the donut's in. So you can see here that I've done a little bit more filtering onto the Phillies, and now we're taking a look at what positions had the most home runs. So I can easily take a glance at this and see that, okay, my first baseman for the Phillies in the National League had the most home runs, 48. It's a pretty good number. So what I was able to do is just duplicate that visual, and then I spun it into a pivot chart, and I've added my players' names in here as well. So I can see that Ryan Howard was my guy that hit 48 home runs. And what's really great about all this, instead of showing all these in separate visuals, I can take all of these and roll them into just one dashboard. And from here, what I can do is, if I want to look at just the National League again and what teams were hitting the home runs, I can maximize that visualization and I can see it right from here and minimize it back down. So it's as easy as that. So you no longer need to have 3 separate visuals anymore. I can put them onto one dashboard and then show them as I need to. Some of the other stuff that we wanted to do was we wanted to highlight some of the different visualization options that you have. For example, if you're using geography, or in our case, we're using origin of player, it gives you the ability to add a map, and data visualization is smart enough to recognize the metadata as geographical. So what I can do is now I can see my data, whether it's the US or Canada, or in my case, what I did is some more analysis on my players from Venezuela. So another one I wanted to highlight is the tree map, which is pretty cool. It doesn't really give you a super lot of information on the screen, but what it does give you is a quick glance at who's hitting those home runs. So I can see that Miguel Cabrera was hitting the most home runs for Venezuela. I can tell you that quickly because it's right there in front of my face. This is a lot of information on this one page. So one of the things that data visualization does that's pretty cool is it gives you the ability to filter down on your accounts or your measures. So this is what I've done here, is I've taken the same information and I've done a top 10 on home runs. So I'm basically filtering down to see who those players were from Venezuela that were hitting the home runs. Another one that's pretty cool is just how quickly you can figure out, do analysis and gain educated assumptions off of visualizations. And in this one, we're doing singles by home runs by player's weight. And you can see I've actually added some analytics in here to see the average lines of where everyone kind of fell with their weight. And the one thing that's actually pretty cool is you can see there's some clustering going on here. And I can look at the weights and see it says 180, 175, and 185. So I can easily make the educated assumption that in that weight range, you're above average to hit a single, but you're below the average to hit a home run. So it really gives you the ability to, again, make a quick analysis and figure out information from a visualization versus looking and sifting through raw data. Another one I want to show was just the batting average against player's salary.
Hey Dave, I'm gonna pause you real quick, but if you look at that dot at the top, who is that?
This one, Nick?
Oh, Chipper Jones. I see. His batting average is at a respectable salary, so a pretty good guy. Once again, not only a handsome man, but he's also taking a less salary than some of the other bloated players, maybe out to the right. Who's over there on the right? Oh, A-Rod. I can see $28 million a year.
Thanks for that, Nick. Moving on, the next one I wanted to show is actually one of my favorites. This is the grid heat map. So what I'm doing here is I'm showing players' heights against player weights against home runs. So what's cool about this is all these gray areas are showing that I don't have any data there. So I don't have anybody that's 6'8", 145 hitting home runs, which kind of makes sense. And the majority are people that are 6'2" and 6'220". So again, it's another quick way to look through my data and figure out where a lot of it is sitting. So that's it for all the pre-built ones I have. So what I'd like to do now is kind of show you guys how I built that first dashboard that I had and how easy it is to spin stuff up on the fly. So when you start a blank, it just looks like this. And how I like to start is just figure out what account I want to look at first. And we've been doing a lot of home runs, so this time I want to take a look at salary. So I can simply just drag that onto my canvas. And I'm going to use, for this case, a horizontal bar. And I think this time, instead of looking at the league like I did in the first dashboard, I'm going to look at positions. So what I'm going to do is drag in my Gen 3 position. And maybe I want a little bit more difference in colors, so I can just drag this easily down to color, change that over. And now I have an easy visualization here of, which players are making more money, infield or outfield. Well, this is great, but if you know anything about baseball, you know that the infield has way more players than the outfield does, so maybe this data isn't exactly a good representation. So what I can do is I can easily right-click and go to Duplicate Visual, and drag this down and let it snap to the bottom. And now I'm starting to create that dashboard look and feel. From here, what I'm going to do is just take that Gen 3 position that I brought in originally and drag it down to my filters. And I just want to take a look at those infielders and see which positions in the infield are making that money. So I'm going to filter on infield, and I'm just going to swap out and go down to the next level and bring in my Gen 4 position. Now I can easily see all my infielder positions, and I can see that first basemen are making the most money out of any of the infield positions. But let's take it another step further. I want to see which first basemen are making the most money. So again, what I can do is I can take that Gen 4 position, drag it down into my filters, filter on first, and then I'm just going to duplicate this visual again. And then to keep that dashboard look and feel, I'm just going to go back and just delete that filter back off. So from here, I'm going to drag my Gen 5 position in, which is my players. And this color is a little bit ugly when you start pulling in a lot of different members. It kind of can mess the colors up a little bit, so you can easily just go ahead into the colors and then reset the visualization colors, which it appears that it's not doing at the moment. There it goes. A little slow. So this is a little bit too much. So what I'm going to do is show you guys how I did that top 10, like I did on the Venezuela graph. So what you can do is easily just take your account, which is salary, and I'm going to drag that down into my filters. And then from here, you can see that it gives me a little bit different filter option. I can either use a range as a filter, or if I go and click on this, I can change the filter type and use a top bottom. And the default is 10, but maybe I want to see just top 5. So now I've got my top 5 players here. And there's a lot of bar graphs going on here, so let's go ahead and use everybody's favorite, the donut. And what's nice about this is just cosmetically, maybe this is a little bit too small. I can change the legend on the left, and it updates. Some of the other stuff that's pretty nice about this is if I wanted to add a page filter, for example, maybe I only wanted to care about those top 5 people that are first baseman that weigh. Let's get weight. Let's drag this up to my page filter. Maybe I only care about guys that are 190. I can filter on 190. As you can see, that's now going to update my entire visualization, my entire canvas, to those people that are 190 first baseman. Or maybe I don't care about that. Maybe I want to see which teams these first basemen are. Maybe I want to see the Yankees. So it's as easy as that to update and flip around and create this stuff on the fly. One last thing I did want to show outside of this is the narrate function. So what's really cool about the narrate function is you can just, it's almost kind of like you can think about it as a PowerPoint feature. If you're having an executive slide or a demonstration to people where you don't want to see all that buildup that I just showed you guys, and you just want to see just a slide view, I can take that visualization that I just created, drag that in, and I can actually present on this. And if I wanted to practice ahead of time, maybe I had this pre-built and wanted to make some notes for myself of everything that I want to say, I can actually add a comment section and say, filter on 190. Just to remind myself, I can add that little note in there. And then when it comes time to present, when I present this information, I don't want to see this, so I can easily just hide that comment. And now I can present this very nice, executive presentation look and feel. And the same thing applies as I can enlarge these as well, just like I did inside the build-up visualization portion. So as you can see, there's a lot of options inside data visualization. I've actually breezed over a lot of the right-click menus inside of the visualizations that allow you to drill down instead of dragging and dropping things in. You can adjust, as you saw me do, the colors. You can apply color filters to a single account. If you wanted all of salary to be blue and all of home runs to be green, you could do that if you really wanted to. There's a lot of different functionality with keep selected, just as you would do in Smart View, keep selected, remove only. There's a lot of functionality in there, and they keep adding more and more.
Perfect. Thanks, Dave. That wraps up our live demonstration. We do have a couple questions that came through the chat, so I think we're going to move to questions while we have a few minutes left in the webinar. And I'll read those off, and then we will answer them. So let me go ahead and come through here real quick and see what we got. All right, so the first question is, if you use the Cube Designer to make dimension changes, does that update the planning side? So that's a good question. And just to be clear, this is actually just S-based cubes. So it's as if you're working in an S-based only environment, working through EAS and making updates to S-based cubes. So Hyperion Planning or PBCS applications, their underlying S-based database is not reflected in OAC. You would not be making changes to one of those databases. That would all be done self-contained within a PBCS application. This is purely for S-based only applications. So no, it has no impact to anything on the planning side. The next question, so we highlighted this a little bit, but maybe not into great detail. Dave, maybe you want to take this one. But what is the difference between BIX and data visualization?
Sure. So BIX is, when I was on that home screen, there's actually another button in one of the drop downs that will take you to the actual BIX home screen. And what you're going to be using BIX for is a lot of that, printed, almost FR kind of look and feel reporting, where it's a static dashboard with maybe a few click buttons. But you're not really going to have, end users creating different spin-offs or slices of data into visualizations that you can do with the actual visual portion of what I just demoed.
Yeah, and I like to think of DV kind of as, it's Smart View on steroids with the visualizations.
Right.
BIX or BI Cloud Service is more your FR, as you said, pixel perfect dashboards and BI publisher type reports.
Right.
Okay, going to the next one. It says, have you run into any issues using the direct connection to SBase or other EPM products like Planning or PBCS? So I'll take this one. The short answer is we have run into some issues. The connections do work, so we have been able to establish connections back to even rather large PBCS applications that we have in-house in our own PBCS environment. The area where you do run into issues and some performance issues are when you have applications that are massive with a ton of dimensions, mainly due to usability. And because as you saw, Dave is dragging and dropping those filters, and essentially every query is starting at top of the house. You just have a lot of dimensions to sort through to try and get to a meaningful data set, which can be challenging for an end user. And the other aspect is alternate hierarchies. So if you have a PBCS application or even a S-based OSC S-based application, a ton of alternate hierarchies does cause the visualizer to choke a little bit and have trouble bringing back data. So what we've seen primarily be the best way to get around that is really spin up separate cubes utilizing those other hierarchies, and then you could just blend the data sets together into a project or come up with some other creative solutions to get around that.
Yeah, and just to keep going off of that point, I know that Oracle's trying to enhance the connection between SBase and data visualization, but I know that the way that data visualization tries to digest all the data coming from SBase is it basically tries to flatten out your hierarchies. So when you have a lot of alternate spin-offs, it has a very difficult time digesting all that metadata. So those are some of the problems. For the PBCS connections, some of the problems we have seen is just the way it runs through the planning layer versus the S-base layer, it can be a little bit difficult to create queries.
So the next question is pretty simple. Is data visualization available with standard OSC? And the answer is yes. So standard OSC comes with the S-base in the cloud, so you can create your S-base applications. You can use SmartView and interact with it just like you would on premises. And it also comes with data visualization. So what we were showing you today, everything that Dave was doing, was in this is OSC standard. That's actually connected to our S-base app.
This one. Real time. Yeah.
Okay, the next one is how real time are the data retrieves in data visualization when directly connected to an S-base cube? And the answer to that is it is instant. So if you're in SmartView or you had data being submitted or loaded to your S-base cloud cube, it would be real time reflected in these visualizations. You would have to hit the refresh button, so the graphs aren't going to sit there and bounce back and forth as data comes into it. But as you refresh those cubes, the visualizations will update. Okay. Another good question. Is there any option to remove the generation labels that are displayed when building the data visualizations? So when you saw Dave was working through there over on the left side, all the hierarchies and dimension members basically said Gen 3, Gen 2 is calling everything out by generation versus actually showing the true tree that exists in S-base. Dave, if you want to take that and some of the pros and cons of renaming those.
Yeah, so you actually do have the options inside the S-base cloud service. When I had that inspect button up and you could see all the dimensions inside of there, you can actually change those generation names. The problem becomes whether you have a very complex application or you don't. If you do, the problem is how do I name those generations? You know, if you have multiple spin-offs in different generations, it becomes very difficult from what I found to name them. But their option is there if you have a simple, for example, this application I could hypothetically rename, league and then team and player, and I could rename those generations to that. Just for the sake of this, I didn't, but you do have the option to do that.
Okay, the next question is how well does data visualization render on an iPad? And it renders just as it does in these browsers. So we're using Firefox to access this. You can use Safari as well, but it's written so that way you can access it from any browser using an iPad. It's going to render the exact same way. So you can drag and drop. You can manipulate the dashboards on an iPad. I know Dave, you've done this a little bit.
Yeah, and you do also have the option to, as I was creating these dashboards, you can manipulate them if you. Again, security, if you had access to it, you could make manipulations on your iPad to these visualizations.
Okay. The next question we kind of touched a little bit was, can the latest OSC DV handle S-base ragged or unbalanced hierarchies? And I think we said there's definitely some considerations there. That is the one area where we have hit a little bit of performance concern, especially in larger, mature applications. And we've kind of got it around it by spinning up separate cubes or creating different views of that data for those alternate hierarchies. Okay. So I'm going to take a shot at this one. Can you use S-base and data visualization with one CPU, or do you need two CPUs in order to use both products at the same time? So this is going a little bit into just how OSC runs, which I'm not going to lie, the way that OSC stood up in the various services that you need to kind of run S-base and data visualization, you do need a couple things running, but you can run it with one CPU. So our OSC standard, which we're running, Sample Basic, this MLB Stats app, and then even some other customer applications that we've brought in there, we've been using one CPU to utilize that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dave.
You're correct.
Okay. Yeah, I believe we've been using one CPU and then incremented. We've gone back and forth between using the memory between like 7.5 gigs and I believe 15 gigs. This is the next increment up. And
yeah, and there's no pricing change between for one CPU between 7.5 gigs of RAM to 15 gigs of RAM for pricing. The 7.5 gigs of RAM, I think people have recognized that it's not even enough. We actually went to 15 gigs of RAM for all of this purposes, and they actually no longer offer 7.5 when you're creating instances anymore. So I think Oracle recognized as well that it's just not quite enough. So 15 is the lowest you can start with.
Okay, so I think that pretty much wraps up the questions. Thank you for everybody for participating.